said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. But thou shalt be brought down to Sheol, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee.
Hello, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing the book of Isaiah. We're in the book of Isaiah chapter 14. Another thing I was going to point out, you notice the thematic element of viols, the pomp. You see that similar, and it's no surprise that you would see this kind of language in these situations. Like you look at Ezekiel 28, the lament for the king of Tyre, which is also a passage that is alluded to in the New Testament and other places, as not only a prophecy concerning the prince of Tyre, the king of Tyre at the time, but also a look into the character of Satan. Because every enemy, the name Satan means enemy. And every great enemy in the Bible is going to have some insight on the grand enemy. Just as it works, like Jesus, he's our model, right? And we model ourselves after him, presumably, or supposed to be. And we're imitating him, right? Well, in a little different way, the Assyrian or the king of Babylon are imitations of Satan. Now, they're not trying to imitate Satan per se, but they are an imitation, nevertheless, in spirit. Because he is the prince of the power of the air, the ruler of the darkness of this world, and the kings of the earth are his, in some respect. And not wholesale, or every single one necessarily so, but in as much as these things are given over to him in the world, or they're given over to evil in the world, they are his. But you notice the pomp and circumstance inherent in that. In Ezekiel 28, you see the same thing. The workmanship of thy drums and of thy pipes. And it's always a weird thing to read. You're like, why are these musical instruments being thrown in? And here too, thy pomp, the noise. Well, because at one time, it's the image of, you understand, in the ancient times, you go into a royal house, then, we have music in our pocket. I mean, my music player is right here somewhere. Yeah, I have like this little music player, and it's just is a high definition music player. It's not a phone. I didn't like when they changed your phone to your music player. Whatever, that's cool. I mean, you think about everyone run around with music on their phones. I mean, I have a music player, but people used to have record players, tape players, reel to reel. CD, DVD, all those things were media that contained music. And then, we take it for granted that having music is something that everybody can do. But it used to be like only like musicians could create music, sure. But I mean, and poor people would make music, but nobody just had music, except kings had musicians and stuff. Yeah, I mean, nobody had just music playing in their environment, and people would make music. Poor people made music all the time. No one could stop them. But the idea of just having music played for you all the time, it's one of them. It's imagery of total pomp and extravagance, really, to have instruments playing around you all the time, and so. That's how the king of Babylon was. And then Satan also, in those things are mentioned in his fall, like in also the king of Tyre. The workmanship of thy drums and of thy pipes was prepared in the, you had all these gold and silver and precious stones covering you. And again, you were in Eden. That's that. And this here, also very similar themes. A little different look, though. Well, this is the burden of Babylon, and the lament upon, or the proverb against the king of Babylon is what it says in verse 3 or verse 4. You will take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. Okay, in the verse we're on, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Lucifer, like we have lucent technology, a luminance, or lumens is the amount. It means light. It's the prefix that in Latin indicates light. It's a Latin word. And the Bible was never written in Latin. It was translated into Latin. It was never written in Latin. The name Lucifer doesn't exist in the Bible, except here because it's coming from Latin. Lucifer means light bringer. It means light bringer. Now, in the New International Version, there was a major controversy from some people because they decided to change the translation. They didn't change it. They were doing a new translation, and they changed Lucifer to something else. I think Morning Star. Let's see what they wrote, actually. I've seen it. I think I was there the other day, and I just don't recall. In the NIV. And we're still on Titus. That's because that's the first book I ever did. And it always starts on that page. That's when I bookmarked it. I didn't feel like bookmarking it every day. Not changing the bookmark. Isaiah. Thank you. 14. Yes, sir. Verse 12. There's Lucifer. Oh, I didn't switch over for you. Sorry. Transition to... Oh, I don't... What? All right, sorry. Browse internet mode. There we go. Lucifer. King James. The number is... Now, let's bring up the Strong's definition. Well, let's go look at the NIV. See what they did. And people are very upset about this. I don't think it's an issue. If you're a good student, it shouldn't be. If you're a good student, you should use different translations as it suits you. I compare. I use them for comparison. It's good. What's cool is like if you're uncertain of the meaning of something, first of all, look at the context and see if you can figure it out. But then look up the word and then look at the context. Never just look up the word and then try to make it mean something out of context. I used to do that. Like early on in my studying, like I remember my teacher at the time, who I've rejected since, I always mention that in case there's someone new and they look him up and they said, this guy was a student with Arnold Murray, the infamous false teacher. And that's true. He's not exactly infamous, but it's not kind of. He's definitely famous as far as being on TV. But when I was, a teenager and studying with this guy, he would often mention the meaning of names. As we would go through, he'd be like, boy, he'd be like, well, like Isaiah, the salvation of God, right? Yah is my salvation, something like that. It's very similar to Yeshua, I think, actually. Isa, oh, poop. Here, I can find out. What does it mean? God is my, or Yah is my what? It's funny, I used to tell people what the book, that like Isaiah, it means, when I just state my mind. You should know what I know. Daniel means God is judge, or judge. God will judge. A lot of times the verb is implied. Yeshaya. Yes, it is salvation of Yah. Okay, I was right. Salvation of Yah. Whereas Yeshua means the Savior of Yah. Different. Salvation versus Savior. Okay. So I'd see things like that, right? Israel means he wrestled with God, and Jacob means heel catcher, usurper, and Lebanon means pleasant field. I can't remember what Lebanon means. I just made that up. But anyways, so all these place names, not all of them, many of them have meanings that we know. But how important is that? Because here's the thing, is like we name places all kinds of, the idea that every place name is significant is an idea you shouldn't just accept. Because I've never heard anyone actually teach that. But I thought it at one point, and I started looking up all the place names and trying to figure out, like, okay, the name of the place is something interesting, like, the place of the dividing covenant, or, I'm just making up something. It sounds interesting. Well, now maybe I can plug it into this unclear passage where the word occurs and try to find a new meaning. Maybe the translators got it all wrong, and I can find out the real meaning by looking into the meaning of the place name. Because sometimes it's not certain whether words should be translated as places or as, transliterated, so that it's obvious a place. Like, for example, if instead of Jerusalem, every time it said peaceable habitation, it might be confusing to English speakers. Because we wouldn't see the name Jerusalem, we just see peaceable habitation. Is this an abstract peaceable habitation? No, it might literally be talking about go up to Jerusalem. But because of the non-specificity of the name, it becomes confusing. So you want place names to be place names in the Bible. You don't want them to be translated because it would get confusing. Now, for things like this, and my point is, I was looking for more meaning as I was studying. And nothing wrong with wanting to find out more or trying to interpret difficult passages. That's something that always was something important to me, because I wanted to understand what I was reading and what I was telling people. I may not be the greatest at, maybe my exposition isn't the greatest. It's certainly the least well prepared. Well, it's well prepared of 25 years of living and reading the scriptures. But, that's not that, really, as I sit here, I don't think it's that impressive. I'm just glad I have something. When I was younger in teaching, I just was a teacher with no reputation. At least now I have history I can look back on, and, people say, well, he's been doing it a while. He must know something. There's always something. At least there's something to be gained. I'm not a total novice. Someone who's lived. Someone whose children, most of whom are almost adult. Well, in October, 4 out of 5 of my children will, 4 out of 5. I meant half. I was thinking 5, like 50%, or half of 10, but I've 8. Will be adults. Technically, anyways. So I'm getting there. Look at verse 12. How have you fallen from heaven, morning star, son of dawn? Instead of Lucifer, son of the morning. I can tell you this, that translating this dawn is a little better. Because that's how I would translate it. I translated it 3 times. I don't know if you heard it at the beginning. Oh no, that was the other song last time. How art thou fallen from heaven? I start off Halel ben Shakar. Because if you want to translate the name, that's what the Bible says. It's not Lucifer, Halel. Halel ben Shakar is what Isaiah 14 says, not Lucifer. Lucifer is what the Catholic Church translated. I'm saying that just because some people, I'm digging at their anti-Catholicism. I'm trying to provoke it to make them chill out about the King James. I love the King James. I say it all the time. I say it frequently. Every time I mention the King James only controversy, I do say I love the King James, but I do not think it's perfect. I was showing you last week. Or last time, actually, wasn't it? Just how sometimes it's just not a good translation. Okay. And honestly, is Lucifer a good translation? No. And I'll tell you what, when the NIV people changed it from Lucifer to morning star, because Lucifer, the word Halel means bright star, and it refers to the morning star. And the reason people are offended is like, see, this is a satanic translation. The book of Revelation says Jesus is the morning star. And now you're calling Lucifer the morning star? Not I. Isaiah. Sorry, I yelled into the microphone anyway. Isaiah called the king of Babylon the morning star. Or morning star. He called not the morning star, but he called him morning star like it was a name. because that's how he meant it. He meant it like, oh, morning star, son of dawn. But Halel ben Shakar sounds like a name, doesn't it? It's not referring to Nebuchadnezzar, that's for sure. But it is referring to him in that sense of morning star is better. My point is, translating this as a proper name is a mistake. It's not Lucifer. It's not like, oh, it was referring to Lucifer. No, it was referring to it was referring to the king of Babylon and calling him the morning star. And what all it's doing, it's like when Paul said, oh, you have reigned as kings. Would to God you had reigned. You know, oh, look at you, morning star, so shiny. So shiny with your tabrets and pipes and your gold and your silver and your musicians. Oh, morning star, so bright and shining. It's a contrast. Obviously, he's being contrasted. His glory is being contrasted with his fall. The worm is spread under thee. The worms, they cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, bright star? You were the bright star. Now you're worm meat. Worm meat, bright star. And so I translated it, Halel ben Shakar, which is a transliteration. Then I translated it, bright star, son of the dawn, bright star, son of the dawn, because that's what it means. And then I said Lucifer, son of the morning, for English-speaking people who don't know their Bible, so they can understand I'm talking about Lucifer. But this is the only place in the Bible Lucifer is ever used as a name for Satan. And it's not even being used for Satan here. If anything, you could say, oh, look, they compared the king of Babylon to Lucifer. But there is no Lucifer. Lucifer is just a made-up name applied to Satan based on the fact that he is mocked as the morning star here. Because he wanted to be, well, as it says, you who said in your heart, he wants to ascend into heaven. He wants to sit on the throne of God. And here he is brought down to the bottom. He wanted to be the morning star. That's why he's called the morning star, in mockery of his ambition. That's the way it's being used here. He's being mocked. It's not just Lucifer. What I'm saying is, when you call him Lucifer here and you say that's just his name, you lose the meaning. You're throwing out what Isaiah was trying to say. You're pissing on the word of God, as far as I'm concerned. If you're King James only, and you think the NIGV did something wicked, you're pissing on the word of God. All right? Sorry. That's the way I look at it. It's just, you just want what you want. You don't care what the truth is. Some people don't care about the truth. It's like, well, the truth is whatever, their own little world. They're in this little bubble, and they have, and all it really, they're the God of themselves, really. It's like the only one they need to please is them. Ugh. You know what I mean? Because, like, I always have this feeling of, like, I'm just, like, trying to find out what the truth is against myself and my own misunderstandings. I always feel like I'm in this battle against me from what I want to believe, what I think. There's all these things I want. But I don't want any of them so bad as I really want the truth. I really don't care about what I want. I used to have like I don't want to say an agenda, but but people say, you just got an agenda. I mean, I had stuff I was trying to push. You know what I mean? Like, you have certain doctrines you want to convey. I even said so. If you listen to my original Romans study, finally I was seeing the word in my head. I saw the word Romans, but I could not read it. I couldn't read it. I kept seeing F. I was going to start a word that's like, and I was like, I saw the word Romans. Weird. This is my brain degenerating as we speak. I just think it's always been a problem. Actually, it was just the byproduct of having an overactive mind. It's like, I have a very, not talking about myself too much, but it's like, it's good and bad because there's a scatterbrainedness to it So I have all this analysis, but I tend to lose track. It's like it'd be nice if I had better focus. I'm not quite the man I could be. But God, what the Lord said though? He said, my strength is perfected in weakness. Where you are weak, I am strong. So it's like this thing. It's like I forget things, and I have a great memory on one side, but there's a certain level of like detailed memory that I have no good. Oddly, I have a memory for big things, but like for the details, no. But thankfully, God brings them to our remembrance. So so I can rely on Him to help me out. A lot of times when I can't remember, I say a little prayer. Okay, to help me remember. All right, so Lucifer, this is garbage. Son of the morning is fine, but Lucifer, garbage. Now, unless you understand that Lucifer, what I mean is it conveys no meaning. It conveys a misunderstanding is what it does. It makes you think that the Bible actually calls him Lucifer and that it's his name. Now, it is his name in as much as by tradition it's become his name. So if I say Lucifer, everyone knows who I'm talking about. But in the Bible, the word is a throwaway. It's actually a mistake. Because there's no reason. It's only an accident of Latin that it's translated into Lucifer. If we didn't have, if they didn't have a Vulgate, if the Latin language didn't exist, we wouldn't have the name Lucifer. We wouldn't have a lot of things too, like half the words you see on the page. But I'm just saying, it's not a thing. And they didn't do it out of some devilish idea to equate Satan with Jesus. It's that Isaiah compared him to the morning star because he wanted to be it. For you have said in your heart, how are you cut down? Which did weaken the nations. I've often thought of that as like in the terms of Satan's rule, but in the sense that he takes over. They become weak. In the book of Revelation, when they worship the dragon, there are 10 kings, and the beast and the 10 kings. And, if the world was divided into like 7 or 10 kingdoms and some Revelation style, it's like the nations by their measure must be weakened because the continents would rise into superstates and then the global state. The rise of the global state will mean the weakening of nations, no doubt. But also, of course, the king of Babylon, through his prowess, weakened the nations through his battle and all that stuff, and who also made them. It may have a sense of cause them to be weak. This may imply fear. In fact, well, there's Hallel. Did I say Halel? Oh, because it is Halel. Sorry, there's no short e. Because there is in Hebrew. In most foreign languages, when you see an E, as far as when you're pronouncing it, in the pronunciation key, you can see here, Halel. Because E's are usually pronounced like a long A. Like in Italian, E is pronounced A. I is pronounced E, the sound E. A is pronounced A, not A. A long A is, English's long A is kind of rare in linguistics, as far as there aren't a lot of, I'm not a linguist, obviously, let me say that. In the languages I've studied, it's rare. Certainly in the Romance languages, the E's tend to be hard, like A, and the A's tend to be A, and the E's, and the I's are pronounced E's, like in Spanish. And there's almost no, the cool thing about, one thing I remember when I learned Spanish, I was so happy because I learned that there was, that the pronunciation was, like A is always pronounced A, or A, or I forgot A, or whatever. It's pretty much uniform. I was like, wow, that is so convenient to have an alphabet. The letters all have one particular sound. Okay. Hallel. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation. I need my words. In the sides of the north. Did I get it right? I sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And there's the king of Babylon speaking. The prophet's putting words in his mouth, but this is his thought process. Right? And people would say, and like I said, I had a friend, someone who used to study with me, and maybe still occasionally does. I don't know. I don't try to keep track of people, and I don't think of people as my students. You'll notice I generally carefully say people who study with me. I will. Well, one, I hate taking possession of people like that. It seems strange. I don't have possession. It's like, this is not meant like that. All right. Anyways, oh yeah. So, you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, and will sit on the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. What's that mean? I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I'll be like the Most High. He wants to be like God. Now, as I said, that the friend who used to stay with me, he told me one day, he's like, I don't think these, like Ezekiel 28, Isaiah, I'm not sure that refers to Satan. Maybe it just refers to those kings. Maybe it's just that, and that these futurists, because a lot of people did dislike the futurism that I believe in. But here's the thing: if you were living in the Old Testament times, and for the Messiah to appear, you were living in a futuristic world. I mean, they were interpreting the prophecies in a futurist way in the New Testament, meaning they were given 600 years ago, and they were looking at them like they had something to do with the time they were living in. You know why? Because it did. Because the prophecies literally told them that in their days, Messiah would be born. So they had a futurist interpretation of Isaiah. They didn't have a preterist interpretation. Now, you could argue that, well, since the New Testament, that's changed, and now it's appropriate to have a preterist interpretation, which means, what's a preterist? I think I got it right. Well, it's not a futurist, right? I believe a preterist would say it's all happened in the past. I mean, all this prophecy, this is all for the past. It remains in the past. It's worthy of studying, for example, but it has no future application, which is foolish, because those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. On that principle alone, prophecy is bound to be repeating, because people don't learn from the Bible. People don't even read it anymore, hardly. So the ancient mistakes that were made, like really big mistakes, like Tower of Babel type stuff and Mark of the Beast type stuff, the things they knew back then that were big problems that people should avoid as far as humankind because they're satanic, like Mark of the Beast type stuff. I mean, anytime, you understand, masks were not a mark of the beast, but they are like the mark of the beast. When people are engaging in satanic type activity that's equivalent to Revelation type activity, meaning the mark of the beast, by forcing people to do this, it's much like the mark. I'm not saying it's spiritually like it. I'm just saying it works like it. You can get a sense of the social pressures. It's an interesting experiment. That's one thing I can say for the past year. I'm very glad to have gone through that and to experience and see what my fellow countrymen are really like, and to realize how utterly alone you will be, how friendless you will be. You will have friends, but it'll be so hard to find them. Because through most of the pandemic, I was at the store frequently because I have to shop for my family. And I have a large family, and I'm the only one who shops. And it made sense during the pandemic for one person to go, obviously, right? But of course, since I'm refusing to wear a mask, and I have since the 4th of July, or no, actually, whatever. That was when I started wearing my mask improperly. Prior to that, I wore no mask. Now I just wore it. Like, for example, I'm considering, even now they're saying when you're vaccinated, you can take off your mask. Well, one thing I don't want to do is lie. I don't like lying. And I'm never going to tell anyone I've been vaccinated when I'm not. But I will wear a mask like this. Literally like this. And then say to people, when they ask. Well, they never ask. If they ask, I was, oh, sure. Politely put it on, and then as soon as I walk away, I don't. Because I get it. It's, on some levels, it's not a big deal. And it is a lot like shoots and shirts. Shoes and shirts, no service, right? They have a right to do that. It's not customary, though. That's the thing. Don't want to get off track. I'm going to studiously avoid getting off track, actually. I'm going to just not talk about what I was about to talk about. Only to say this. The mark of the beast, that kind of stuff, the end time stuff, has it's not like it has no precedent in history. The idea of excluding people from commerce because of some, they could have done, look at, all my life they've been telling me we need to have microchips to have the mark of the beast. That's a lie. This could be, they could say, it would be, you now know after a year, this is completely believable. If we put in a rule that said, obviously, getting people to cooperate in a pandemic is a lot easier than if I just put in an arbitrary rule. But the point is, you can, through subtlety and through fear, I could easily, or the one in charge, one in power, could easily make it so that no one could buy or sell food or anything. Not easily, but they could definitely do it. And the mark of the beast could be literally just like, okay, right here. Now you're wearing the mark of the beast. There we go. Mark of the beast, it could just, there you go. That's the mark of the beast. I mean, whatever. Like they could say, you can't buy or sell without a yellow bandana on your head. And if they have good enough, if they get, and the point is, my point is not that people be willing to go along with this for some stupid reason. They're not. The point is that I can limit your ability to buy and sell with something as simple as this. Meaning, the mark does not have to be a friggin' computer. Like, they used to be like, how could they prevent people from buying or selling by means of a mark? It has to be some sort of computer chip that watches all your transactions. It's so much. You think that because they're like the people in the Bible were like they were seeing into the future and they totally saw microchips coming and that and God was telling them that microchips would someday be the thing and that the mark of the beast would be a microchip in their hand because that's what it takes. There's no other way they'd be able to stop you from buying and selling because of cash, because you'd be able to use cash to buy. No. If this means I'm on God's side and not wearing it means I'm the devil? Because you understand, when I go to the store without a mask, people think I'm a Republican. I'm a libertarian, but they think I'm a Republican. Right? Or conservative. They think I'm definitely not on board. When they see me cockily wearing my big, long, yellow, loud mask wrong all the time. I even had a guy, people rarely ask, but I will tell this story. I was wearing a mask in a line. And I was wearing it like this, and he's like, oh, they want you to wear it and stay 60 feet apart while you're in line. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, and then he actually, for the first time ever, after I put it on like that, someone said to me, they want you to cover your nose too. And I looked at him and I said, really? But I didn't do it. I was like, that's enough. That's enough. I gotta be able to defy. I gotta know that I can. Good. That was good to know that I knew I was still defying them. Not that it's particularly. I consider it pretty pathetic. I don't consider myself a friggin' hero. Walk around in a yellow stupid bandana. I picked yellow because it means I'm chicken. I would go with no bandana, except I just don't like I don't want to interact with people on it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to argue about it. I'm not going to get vaccine because I had coronavirus. Why would I get a vaccine when I had the virus? Possibly twice. I'd like to just have someone explain it to me. Why I still need to get it. But if you can only stop wearing your mask if you've got a vaccine, well then I'm going to keep wearing my mask because I want to signal to people that I haven't got a vaccine. So I wonder how long it'll be before it switches and Republicans start wearing masks. And and I'm not a Republican by any means. I mean, I have occasionally voted for Republicans, and someone may remember I endorsed one last year. As far as the election goes, but I don't consider myself a Republican. No, because I don't like Republicans, honestly. Some of them, I don't like politicians. I'm not fond of libertarian politicians either. I think they're a bunch of scumbags, most of them. I like people like Ron Paul. Yeah. I like real people. People I think are real, anyways. People that can fool me. I don't want to skip ahead just yet. All right, sorry about the sidetracking. Okay. But my point is the mark of the beast. It doesn't have. This year I learned. It doesn't have to be a microchip or anything fancy. All it has to do is be as a symbol. You understand? If wearing, let me put it this way. Think about it. I won't wear a mask. I have friends who won't wear one. I mean, I'll wear it. But I won't put it over my face. Is what I say. I won't put a mask over my face. My brother won't wear it. My wife won't wear it. They won't wear it at all, right? But what's the big deal? Well, there is a big deal, and I'm not going to go into it. There is a big deal about it. And you should know why it's not good. But it's no big deal. As far as this thing itself, what does it mean? Well, it means you're trying to help out, maybe clean up the disease. Or it means, if you're not wearing one, maybe it means you think this imposition on our liberty is too great. So not the mask itself. For me, it's never been about the mask. It's always been about closing businesses down. That's always been, and the masks are the symbol. They're the external. You can't see all the people. You can't see a lot of the damage being done because of their response to the pandemic, which is only beginning to come home to roost. Get ready. It's only beginning to come home to roost. But this is nothing. It's just a piece of cloth. What does it represent? Health, whatever. The mark of the beast represents, in other words, would you wear this? A lot of folks, good folks I know, people I love, I don't disrespect, are wearing masks, okay? Because it's the simplest thing to do to just get along. You don't have to buck. It's no big deal, they feel, and they do it, okay? Fine. I'm not angry with anyone for wearing it. Sometimes I'm bemused at some of the antics of people because when I see someone wearing it everywhere, like outside, in their car, walking around, they are, to me, very safety conscious. So then when I see them in any way, like doing something that is really stupid about safety, it makes me feel like they're not, like they're just virtue signaling. They don't really care about safety. They're just wearing the mask to show off. I'm a Democrat, I guess, and proud. I don't know. I don't think I admit, when I see someone who's scrupulously wearing a mask, like Joe Biden level of wearing masks, like wearing it on your Zoom meeting or whatever. Like right now, like if I was wearing it right now, like unironically, if I was not just using it as a prop, I do think, oh yeah, Democrat. I gotta confess, I assume that person is a Democrat or or whatever. But many people I like are wearing, and I don't hold anything against people for putting it on the store because the store requires, and they don't want to deal with the hassle. And they don't want to be a stinker. They don't want to get a detention. They don't want to get a study hall. That's how I feel. I mean, I don't mind taking the study hall or whatever. They never do anything. There's no penalty. But I feel like I'm in school. I literally feel like I'm in school, like I'm being monitored. Except I'm not playing along. I was like, no, I'm not going to show up to detention. Sorry. I'm just not. And I'm not going to go along with this crap. What if this represented I worship Satan? Would you wear it then? I worship Satan. Now when I go by yourself, it's not a question of I care about my neighbor. Right now it's a virtue signal of, it's a virtue signal that says I care about my neighbors, At least I think I do. Or I think what I'm doing helps. I grant people that they think they're helping, of course. People always think they're doing good. That's why I say people always think they're on the good guy's side. They never think they're the bad guys. That's why I say, I have a taste for movies. Like, this show, there's a movie Stalingrad, and it was in German. I like that. I like World War II movies in German. I do. And I like ones that show the bad guys sympathetically. Not meaning understanding how they thought and felt about themselves. Because some people object to that badly. Like, some people look at a movie like Gods and Generals. It's a Civil War movie. One of my favorites. It's considered a horrible, terrible movie. It's too long, that's for sure. I'm going to take off this stupid thing. It's too long, right? It's considered a bad movie. But there's a lot of other reasons people don't like it because they consider it neo-Confederate. Like they consider it like an apology for the Confederacy. And I see why they see that. But when I watch it, what I see is this is what the Confederacy thought of itself. This is how they saw themselves. They didn't see themselves as the villains. They thought they were the heroes. You know what I mean? Same thing with Nazi Germany. You know, the most loyal Nazi, the most adamant Jew-hating, help the Fuhrer, turn in the Jews, send them to the gas chambers German, the one who's most zealous for it, is the one who thinks he is the most virtuous. Yeah, that's something people have to understand. It's important. Because while you're doing the most evil things in the world, you will think you are the most righteous man in the world. That's something that people do not get. They think the bad guys know they're bad guys, but they don't. You know what that means? That means you might be the bad guy. You know why? Because you don't know. And you don't think you are. So you might be. It's not like just because you don't think so, you might be. But the point is, you don't think so. Well, neither did Hitler. Hitler thought he was a good guy. He thought he was the one. You know? It's like that. There's that sketch where the Nazis... There's some British sketch where these two guys, British guys, are playing Nazis, and then one of them was like, "Are we the baddies?" You know? Because he was looking at what they're doing, and he's like, "Are we the baddies?" You know, like, because a lot of times people don't even give that consideration. As they murder people, they think, I'm doing what's best for society. I'm saving Germany from these filthy Jews, is what they're thinking. That's what they think. And so the people that accept the mark of the beast don't think, I worship Satan. They think, I love God. I serve God. I'm going to put this on to show off how much I love God. And when I go to the store, everyone's going to say, oh, another God lover. Hi. You love God too. Let's buy and sell. But you come in like... Now, here's the thing. Now, imagine if you know, not like the pandemic. Now, to me, I cooperated with the mask for a while, but then I started realizing that what was more terrifying was the encroachment on our personal liberties. Far more scary than the pandemic. This pandemic was nothing. It's a bullshit pandemic, just like I said. Bullshit. It's a real disease. But the pandemic is a pandemic of bullshit. Of people saying stuff that's not true. Especially scientists and the CDC. Biggest liars on the planet. The CDC should be disbanded, defund the CDC. Defund the CDC. You know, defund the police, defund the CDC. Take that, get rid of that organization. There needs to be some sort of science, but I mean, that one's got to be, you should just scrap it and start over. Such a failure. Science is a failure, by the way. Science and scientists are the great failure of this year. They caused the pandemic. They caused their, you know what I mean? They are, by following the science, let's research gain of function. They caused a pandemic, then their recommendations caused a global collapse. That hasn't happened yet. That's still working its way through the system. It takes a while for the globe to collapse. You know what, honestly, the funny thing is the deadly wound, if this is the deadly wound of the world system and we're watching it happen, then what the deadly wound is the incompetence of our leaders. It makes sense. Satan's going to be a great leader, a very competent fellow. He is wise. He is competent. He will make things run like you can't believe. They will worship him. Now, back to the text. Okay. Now, go back to he said, my friend was like, hey, I don't think that that's Satan. Or I don't think you can say that's Satan, per se. Because Lucifer, the Lucifer thing, he wasn't even talking about that because he studied with me. And I've never made a big bank on Lucifer, and he knew how I felt about the King James. So, we were totally in agreement on that, I think. So it didn't come up about Lucifer, but it was all about, this Sunny. This is just the King of Babylon thinking he's like God. This is the King of Babylon. It's only about the King of Babylon. It's not about anybody else. I mean, it may be that you can expand on the concept to other kings and stuff, but it's not. specifically referencing Satan, as meaning like that's a specific underlying intent of the Holy Spirit to tell us something about Satan. Well, I think it must be, because look at, like I said, and it is a perfect example. If not, was Paul just making this up? Did Paul make up 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? When he says this stuff, I'm just going to read it. Let no man, now we beseech you, brethren, and I'm going to do a little bit of shifting of the words to improve the translation. Now we beseech you, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and concerning our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, that the day of Christ is at hand. I'm not going to focus on the part about the day of Christ. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Now, he talks about this man of sin. Now, what I'm telling you is that Isaiah 14 is describing the man of sin, the son of perdition. It is a description of the man of sin and the son of perdition. How do I know that? Look what it says here. He opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. It means showing himself means making a show of himself. Like showing himself means show yourself. That kind of show. It's a reflexive use of the word show. Not like show like, I'll show myself, I can do this by doing it, and I'll show myself. No, it means showing to others. Like making a show. Now, it says that. But like the question is, where does Paul come up with this? Is this a special revelation? It could be. It could be a new revelation of God given to the Apostle Paul. Right? Could be. What is going on? Oh, gee, nice. Wait, is that how it really looks over there? Okay, no. Wait, is that in the window? No, it's not. Okay, that's fine. Why? That's weird. No, that is in the window, isn't it? Okay, that keeps... I don't know why it's just suddenly now dropping that in. It doesn't... It usually sits right up there unobtrusively, and now it's just in my thing. So wonderful. And now? It's still doing it. So annoying. And now oh, gee. I only have limited places to put this stupid thing. There's no room. Hold on. So, all right. That seems to work. Right? Okay. Lordy. All right. So the point is about Isaiah, about 1 Thessalonians, is like, where did Paul get this idea? And it's the Old Testament, obviously. He's obviously, look at, when it says he sits in the temple of God, showing himself to be God, that specific event, Antichrist sitting in the temple of God, showing, here's the thing, the king of Babylon burnt the temple to the ground. This king of Babylon, because remember, in the book of Revelation, who is the great villain on the female side? Mystery Babylon. And what does she say? I sit a queen and am no widow. Well, that means the king of Babylon is somewhere around. And I've talked about this. The queen of Babylon thinks she's the bride of Christ. And she thinks the king of Babylon is Jesus. So, she says, I'm a queen. I'm not a widow. My Savior isn't the dead Lord. It's the risen Christ. Anyways, well, I don't know, Paul. How do I know that this passage in Isaiah is referring actually to the temple? It just says he wants to sit on the sides of the north. The mount of the congregation could be anything. It could be his own. It could be something at Babylon. You know. Well, this sides of the north thing is. Oh, I see why. I was on this thing the whole time. No wonder. Dummy. You can't just bring your text up like that. Why did it even work? That was weird. So wait a second. Oh, I get it. So if I don't have my Bible up, whatever. This is confusing. Okay, I want to go to Psalm 48 briefly to just show you why. This is an important. I always took this psalm as something to memorize, not the psalm itself, but the actual. I mean, I have memorized the verse in question, but verse 2, beautiful for situation. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. The sides of the north is a technical term referring to the geographical location, Mount Zion, where the temple is, the city of the great king. You know, that's where he wants to go. He wants to ascend into heaven, as Jesus did, and be enthroned, and have people worship him in Jerusalem, because Jesus is going to be returned to Jerusalem and be king there. Well, that's what Satan wants to do. That's what Antichrist wants to do. He's going to slip in first. Remember Paul said in 2 Thessalonians, let no man deceive you. There must come a falling away first, and the man of sin, the son of perdition, be revealed. And you can see the falling away is in the book of Revelation. It's called Mystery Babylon, the great whore. Whoring is apostasy. You go a whoring from your God. It's an Old Testament prophetic symbol. The symbolism of being a whore means you go with other gods. You know what I mean? And in the New Testament, it makes a lot of clear analogies of Jesus is the symbolic husband of the church. And the church is his symbolic wife. Well, Mystery Babylon is a symbolic whore who went off and started screwing Satan during the tribulation. And she is not the bride of Christ. She is the whore. You know, there were 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. You know, and the foolish ones ended up in the whore. There must come a falling away first, and that man of sin, the son of perdition, be revealed. That man of sin is the man described here in Isaiah 14, is the king of Babylon. The king of Babylon was the man of sin of his day. And he was a type of the man of sin that is to come. Because, you know, the wicked deeds of the evil kings are, of course, informed by the spirit of Satan working in the world. The spirit that works in the world, that works in the children of disobedience, as it is written. Sorry. I started thinking about looking for my dog. Okay. Let's go back. So anyways, beautiful first situation is Mount Zion. It's good to know. There's your documentation. That's where we get it. I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the star. You know, he's got just very high ambitions. And is it not written in the book of Revelation there was war in heaven? Michael's angels fought against the dragon, and they were cast down. When he's cast out, it says, rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. But woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, for he knows he has but a short time. And I'm sorry, I do not put that event in the past, because I think that can only fit really into the tribulation. Because the really short time, that's the only time he gets that short time to be really in the earth in a special way. Not in the normal way. Because he's been out in the world for a long time. But he's going to be excluded from heaven. Okay. Verse 15. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Revelation 20. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, king of Babylon. That's her husband. And he laid on the dragon and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and set a seal upon him, that he should not trouble the nations for 1,000 years. You will be brought down to hell, Sheol again. The grave, it means you are going to be killed. But, it doesn't mean that Satan is going to be cast into like a fire. But what it's talking about is his humiliation, his defeat. The bringing down to hell in this context to the sides of the pit refers to basically comparing the pomp and the extravagance of a king, the music playing, the beautiful ornamentation and all that, to the utter profanity of the grave. There's nothing more profane than a grave. Nothing more far from holy. Nothing more far from the temple. Nothing more far from clean than a grave. As far as like a fresh grave with a person in it. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee. They're going to inspect you carefully, is what that indicates. And consider you, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? That did shake kingdoms? They're going to look at him and say, is this the one? It's interesting because they'll say, oh, well, look at here. The people see him. That indicates life. Well, you can look at a corpse and have the same effect. You can look at a corpse and say, is this the man? This is the guy. So it doesn't really mean anything. He shook kingdoms. The earth trembled at his word. They feared him, and now look where he is brought. That's the thing. And you look at, I have a song, I have many songs I'm working on, trying to release. It's really hard right now. But one I was working on, and I talk about Hitler in the song a little bit. And one of the things I mentioned, is it when I mentioned in the song? I want to say something about him, as long as we're talking about Hitler all the time in this study. But, you think about it, he shook kingdoms. He shook the world, right? And then what did he come to? Having his friends set him on fire after he commits suicide. He kills himself. And then he has his corpse burned in the streets. There's no mausoleum for Hitler. There's no monument. No, like many great leaders of the past. And he was a great man. I mean, as far as big, is anyone bigger than Hitler? I mean, we have historic figures that loom as large. Maybe ones that are more successful. Meaning was Genghis Khan less murderous? It's funny because we'll talk about Genghis Khan. And people consider him brutal, But not the problem. What the difference is? It's the modern age, man. It's the technological terror of the Nazis that really made that applying modern technology to the brutality of ancient warfare, or the attitude of ancient warfare, which is kill off your enemies. So I was like, exterminating. They were exterminating the Jews. And they used technology to do it. In the old days, there was no, put people in the trains and ship them off to gas chambers. You had one bloody sword blow at a time if you wanted genocide. So, you had to, that's the thing. It's like, if you have to do all the killing yourself and be present for it, you have to kind of live through it. It's like, I would think that would have, even on people like the Assyrians, have a somewhat tempering. Like, that's enough fun. Even if it's just that. Even if it tempers it a bit like that. Enough fun. Because, as cruel as you can be, All work and no play may make Jack a dull boy, but all play and no work makes Jack a deadbeat. So you got to work. And so do everyone. Okay. They that see this shall narrowly look upon you. They're going to look at him and say, wow, how has he fallen? Isn't that the point? How art thou fallen? How art thou come down? The worms are over you. The worms are under you. You used to be music played when you went into a room. They let doves loose when you walked into the room. They strewed rose petals in front of you as you walked, lest you should touch the ground without touching a rose petal first. And now look at you. And made the world as a wilderness, and destroy the cities thereof, and open not the house of his prisoners. He wasn't a set the captives free kind of king. And Satan isn't that kind of king. He's not a set the captives free kind. God does that. Satan only frees a prisoner to bind him some other way. I mean, like he'd let you out. He's the kind of guy who'd let you out of prison to go be an informant on your friends. I let you out of prison, but you're gonna report to me every week. I wonder what your friends are doing. That's the kind of dude he is. He doesn't free people. Jesus is all about letting the captives free. I came to set the captives free. Not Satan. No, he keeps his captives. Now we keep the prison locked up tight. Made the world as a wilderness. Some people would like that. The ordered world. They hate it. They hate the world of men, the ordered world that we have created for us to exist in. They want it all to go back to nature. Because they prefer that state, even though man's been working with nature for thousands and thousands of years. I guess they don't like the fact that we're burning things, too many fires. It is too many. It basically comes down, we're burning too many things. Burning coal, burning this, burning that. It's all the burning that bugs them. And maybe they're right. I mean, we can't burn forever everything. We'll turn the earth into a wasteland, obviously. So, I don't know. But I don't know what you do about it in the meantime. I mean, I don't think I know what you do to stop it, but the problem is all they ever do is talk about stopping it. They don't talk about genuine mitigation. Well, they do. What am I talking about? But it gets talked about less is what I should say. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people, and the seed of evil doers shall not be renowned. All right, hold on. We're going to probably pick up tomorrow, verse 21. Actually, I want to talk. Well, you know what? Yeah. So he's comparing them in these verses. He's comparing them. He's comparing him to the kings of the earth, all the kings of the nations. The way they lie in glory, and they're decked out. But he said, "You are cast out of your grave like an abominable branch." That reminds me of Hitler. Hitler had no grave. He was literally burned in the streets, just so they could avoid giving up his corpse, because he didn't want them to sport with his body. He wanted to hide. He didn't, because he was reported to have one testicle and other, at least that deformity. And even if he was completely whole, they were going to obviously want to take his body and display it and stuff, and he didn't want to give them the satisfaction, So he killed himself in the street. But he has no great tomb. He has no, and so you can see what happens to these leaders. It may be that in the midst of this, everyone thinks the mark of the beast is great, but when he loses, nobody's with him anymore. There's no one's left to adorn his grave. Everyone forsakes him. He's cast out of his grave like an abominable branch. Interesting, because it's like, it's an interesting that they would throw that analogy in, because we were talking about the branch, the son of David, right? The branch that would come. And then we also have just the concept of cedars of Lebanon and all that stuff, and the men as trees thing going on, but also the idea of in genealogy, like in a kingly line, it is like a branch of David. Again, it's like growing out of his roots. Like there's you have an idea of a family tree, and trees are used to, like, branches of trees are like family descent, as far as an analogy. And I think that's what it's referring to here. Like they don't, like, when you bury someone, what do? You put a gravestone, a marker, you put their name on it, right? John Smith, George Washington, right? And let's say it's a kingly line, and, like, you know, we have King Nebuchadnezzar and King Bubahamamama and King Hammurabi and King so, you know, but this king gets no tomb. This king gets no grave. He's cast out like a part of the family tree that you don't want associated with it. You know what I mean? Like all the kings of the nations, imagine them all lying together in a collective king's graveyard, so to speak. And it's the family of kings. And he's cast out, though, like an abominable branch, as the raiment of those that are slain. You know, I mean, the clothes of the slain are unclean. The clothes of the dead were considered unclean, but the clothes of the slain, I mean, because people who are killed often defecate themselves. I didn't want to say poop, but I just said it. And I didn't want to say the word I already said earlier. So they defecate themselves, they urinate themselves. Almost said the wrong word on that one too. And they probably have blood and mud and all kinds of guts and dirt on that. The clothes are dirty. If you're slain, thrust through with a sword, yeah, the clothes are, meaning, worthless. No one goes, oh, look at it. I remember that shirt. Let's take it and wash it. It's a loss. The dead are only stripped of their armor, never of their clothes. I mean, maybe their boots, you know. But, I mean, again, the raiment, something that's been thrust through with a sword. Like if someone was wearing a shirt and they got stabbed, thrust through with a sword, the shirt is trash. Yeah? And that's what Satan is. He's trash. He's like a shirt that's been, you know, cut and bloodied. It's like, there's no point when you wash it and sew it up, throw it away. They go down to the stones of the pit as the stones of the pit. This may indicate some sort of, for some reason I imagine the stones of the pit as like a mass grave. Because it just somehow sounds like a big pit. Because it talks about a grave as a pit, and he is brought down to see, everyone dead goes to hell. They go to the grave. That doesn't mean it's a nice grave, or it could be a tomb, but whatever it is, it represents their dead state. And it somehow also represents what people thought of them after they're dead. Like Hitler, no grave, no marker, you know what I mean? Even when they found the burned body, it's not like they took the corpse and like put it in a reverential mausoleum or something. They had Lenin in Russia for years that you could go visit his corpse. And they had him like, it looked a lot, you know, gross as hell. I mean, you know, yeah. Because he was skinned and, you know, they had him preserved. Going to look at the, you know, it's too bad. If anyone ever should have been thrown out of their grave, Lenin, there's one candidate. Stalin, yeah, all those guys belong thrown out of their graves, not buried in state, in pomp. My gosh. Are they going to dig them up yet? They should. Someday they probably will. There's a carcass trying on her feet. You know, a trampled carcass. Can you think of anything less? And carcass is never used of, I believe, human carcass. Carcass is a dead animal. Let me check that. I remember learning this. A cadaver only refers to a human dead body. A corpse also only refers to a cadaver. I think actually is the word they use technically for a medical, a body in a medical setting, like a dead body is a cadaver. I believe. I remember looking that up or somewhere it was told me. It was a book I was reading. Incidentally, it said it. Google wants to use your microphone. No. How about go to hell? Did you try? You get that? I don't want their damn... They put me on the microphone thing. I must have clicked it. Oh, yeah, I did. We're over, and I'm like looking up a word. Alright, I'm not getting any... It's not doing it. Whatever. So, I know carcass. Oh, the dead body of an animal is a carcass. It's not a corpse, which is a human. Different. We have a special word for dead humans. Dead humans are corpses. Dead animals are carcasses. He is like a carcass. A dead animal. You ever see a flattened, dead, kind of pancaked animal that you didn't care about? You know, you just walked. Oh, look at a squashed animal. Who cares? Oops, poor thing. You know, you don't give much thought to it. But it's like not something that's going to gain a lot. I mean, a trodden carcass. I mean, a flattened one. I mean, you don't even need to worry about burying it. It's hardly even a thing. You know, you kick it along like a little... You ever get a flattened animal that just kind of moves along like a piece of... like a crisp, thin piece of wood? Clack, clack, clack. Yeah. You know, like just like that. That's how he's gonna... Not a very unceremonious end, indeed. And he's not joined with them in burial because he's destroyed his land, slain his people. To see, you know, I think we'll take it up with verse 20. I don't want to brush by this verse. We covered everything else pretty well in verses 12 through 19. Everyone in his own house, meaning his own burial house, right? Not too bad. You know, it's funny. Every time I do one of these studies, I always feel like I wish... Every moment I spend talking about personal or current events, I'm always like, I wish I just spent more time talking about the scripture, because I end up wanting to go back and say more about it, because there is much to say. But I don't know. At some point you start repeating yourself, and I do enough of that. Anyways, thanks for joining this study. We'll pick it up with verse 20 tomorrow. And until then, remember to say your prayers. And I haven't thought of a catchphrase. Maybe I should have a contest. I'm just kidding. I don't want to repeat something the same thing. I do it as a joke. I don't want to do... It's like, I always hated signing letters, like, in his service. It is a humble thing to say. It's not saying the prophet. Sincerely, the prophet. The apostle. I mean, people say, in his service. Or, you know, there's all kinds of things I've had people... These little ornamental things they say at the end. I always just feel like it's just a bit much and just... I'm not trying to virtue signal with the end of my Bible study. But then again, by having no catchphrase, am I virtue signaling by having no catchphrase? Well, till next time.
Who said in your heart?
I want a different one.
Oh, they shall speak and say to thee, art thou become as weak as we, art thou become like us? Thy pomp is brought down to Sheol, the noise of thy viols. The worm is spread under thee, the worms they cover thee.